Hello and welcome to this course module on understanding high-tech customers. This video lecture goes hand in hand with the material in chapter 7 of our book, Marketing of High Technology Products and Innovations. We're going to take a look at how customers behave when they are faced with deciding whether to adopt a high-tech product or service. If marketers know the factors that affect consumer decisions, they can better design and develop products to succeed in the market. Marketers often segment markets by the timing of consumer adoption, and they face a specific challenge in marketing high tech products or services. We will examine this challenge of crossing the chasm and discuss possible solutions to the problem. Here is a simple 5-step process that consumers follow when they face the uncertainty of a new high-tech product or service. Consider the last time you purchased perhaps a laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Was it an impulse purchase, or did you take some time over the decision? I would bet that you took several days, maybe even weeks or months, to decide which particular model or brand to buy. Companies like Samsung advertise new models almost every 6 months. Most of these launches may not excite us, but if we need a replacement for our existing smartphone, we recognize our need and this becomes the problem. We may then search the web, collecting information, or read technical magazines, or go check out available models at a retail store. We narrow down our consideration set to a set of alternatives that we may formally evaluate in terms of brand, performance, price, and other criteria. We decide on a specific brand and model, buy it, bring it home, and start using it. Then we begin to experience post purchase feelings, things like satisfaction or frustration, also called buyer's remorse or cognitive dissonance. High-tech marketeers need to recognize that this whole process is very time consuming and difficult for consumers. So the marketing challenge is how to make this whole process as easy, convenient and seamless as possible. We must provide relevant information starting with a good website, then allow as many touch points as possible so that all consumer questions can be answered in the pre-sales process. Two criteria that have become more important for consumers of high-tech products in recent decades are design and environmental impact. Prior to 1997, conventional wisdom in the PC industry was that all PCs should be either black or beige in color. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple and launched the candy colored iMacs, consumers loved it. Now, all high tech companies recognize that aesthetics or looks matter a lot, especially when the alternatives are about the same in functional performance. Ease of use is also an important aspect of design that consumers value. They want functional performance benefits of the product, but the product should also be intuitive to use and not require a lot of learning. Consumers, especially younger consumers, have become much more sensitive to the environmental impact of the products they use. They react quite negatively to toxic ingredients in high tech products like mercury, which can pollute landfills and groundwater. Companies and brands that can organize recycling efforts at the end of a product's life and ensure safe disposal of toxic materials are evaluated more favorably by consumers. Because of the increased weight of design and environmental impact in consumer decisions, high tech companies are increasingly adopting design thinking. Earlier, they used to hire lots of engineers to work on what is technologically feasible, and they would hire business school graduates to finesse their business models. Now, increasingly, companies from Apple to Samsung and Facebook to Twitter are hiring lots of industrial designers to work on user interfaces, ergonomics, and aesthetics to add value to consumers. Design thinking is a holistic approach to designing products and services that integrate knowledge from engineering, business, and consumer usage behaviors. This is a very robust and parsimonious framework tested in many different industries that explains the success of new innovations. The six factors are ordered from most important to least important. Relative advantage is what a new high tech product needs to offer compelling value to consumers relative to their existing way of doing something. Relative advantage could be performance or cost savings or even provide psychological benefits such as prestige or self confidence. Someone who already has a laptop and a smartphone may not see any relative advantage in buying a mobile tablet. This was the speculation before the iPad was launched in 2010. However, since then, tablets have established themselves as a new product category because they seem to offer people a superior media consumption experience. Compatibility is not just technical interoperability, but consistency with consumers' existing way of doing things, consistency with their tastes, preferences, values, and behavior. Hybrid cars like the Toyota Prius are very compatible with most people's driving habits because you drive a hybrid no different than you drive a petrol car. However, all electric plug in cars are not as compatible with people's driving habits because they have limited range and take a long time to charge the battery. Complexity is the opposite of ease of use and is the only one of the above six factors negatively related to consumer purchase. That is, the greater the complexity of the product or service, the lower the likelihood of consumer purchase. Trialability is the possibility to try out the innovation for a trial period on a limited basis. Test driving a new car or downloading and using software free for 14 days are examples of trialability. Communicability is the property of the new product or service that makes it easy to explain the benefits of the product to others by word of mouth. It is difficult to communicate the benefits of many high tech products or services because they have to be experienced in order to understand their value. For example, in space tourism, the benefit is the sensorial experience of weightlessness. Even those who have taken a suborbital space flight will have difficulty communicating their experience to others. Observability is the property of new high tech products or services that make its benefits easily visible to others. Many new cars, especially hybrid cars and electric cars, have digital displays that convey fuel efficiency in real time. This makes it easy for any passengers to see that these cars are very fuel efficient and can reduce operating costs. When you apply this framework to specific new products that have been launched in the past, it provides a pretty good explanation for market success or failure. The Apple iPhone was a big success after launch in 2007 because it had the relative advantage of three devices in one: a music player, a mobile phone, and an internet browser. The Apple Newton of the early 90s, on the other hand, did not offer much relative advantage. The tablet and stylus were not compatible with users' existing way of using computers, and it was way too complex with its handwriting recognition software. This graphic illustrates segmentation based on timing of adoption within a market. The x-axis is time, showing innovators are the first to adopt a product and laggards are the last. The area under the symmetric bell curve shows 100% of the customers in a market, with each colored segment showing the percentage of the market in that specific segment. After studying many such curves, the generalization is that innovators constitute about 2.5% of the market, early adopters about 13.5%. The two segments together, often called the early market, constitute about 16% of the market. Because the curve is symmetric about the center, laggards are also 16% of the market. That leaves 68% in the middle, which is called the mainstream market, with the early majority at 34% and the late majority also at 34%. People in different segments have different attitudes towards technology. Innovators are technology enthusiasts. Early adopters are visionaries. Early majority buy for pragmatic reasons. Late majority are conservative. And laggards are skeptics of the new technology. Because of these different attitudes and needs, between any two segments there is a communication gap, denoting that people in one segment don't easily share recommendations or referrals with people in the adjacent segment. The biggest communication gap is between the early adopters and the early majority. Why? Because these segments are the most different from each other. This slide explains the difference in attitudes between the early adopters or visionaries and the early majority or pragmatists. Here you can see, while visionaries are adventurous and like to take risks, pragmatists are prudent and reasonable. Visionaries like to spend big, price is not an issue for them, but pragmatists, they have to stay within budget. Visionaries want to be the first in implementing new ideas. They want prestige and status. Pragmatists, they believe in slow and steady progress. Visionaries look down on pragmatists, and pragmatists think visionaries are dangerous. Because of these major differences in attitude, the two groups don't want to talk to each other at all, hence the chasm. Chasm is not a given for all high-tech products. If a company launches a hit product, it could ride all the way to the top without a chasm. For example, Google search engine and Facebook did not experience any chasm. But if you are a high-tech marketeer, you should know it could happen, especially if the technology, market and competitor uncertainty around your product are very high. Then if your product falls into the chasm, don't panic because we know how to get you out of it. And you have to cross the chasm if you want to have a successful business model because there's very little profit if you're only addressing the early market. You will only make huge profits if you can cross over into the mainstream market. Hence, the importance of crossing the chasm. What are the signals that a high tech product has fallen into the chasm? First of all, the product might experience a quick sales spurt after launch, followed by tapering off of revenues within the first couple of years. Or there may be a long period, several years, 7 or 8 years, without any substantive growth. Both of those are evidence of a chasm. If you are following a strategy of customization one on one with visionaries, you suddenly find that's not being successful in attracting new customers who are pragmatists because they are not ready to buy. The founders of the company may become demoralized, and the venture capital folks might turn off the faucet. So, a high tech marketer has to recognize these signals and realize the product has fallen into a chasm. Then they have to try and climb out of the hole by radically changing marketing strategy. Examples of product that fell into the chasm: the Nokia N-Gage game player fell into the chasm, never recovered. Apple Newton, the first tablet in the early 90s from Apple, and also the two-wheeler Segway experienced a chasm as well after it was launched. So, how do we get out of the chasm? With a new marketing strategy that consists of two steps. First step is identify and target a beachhead. Beachhead is a single target market or niche within the mainstream market where competitors see compelling value in the product even if it has fallen into the chasm. It requires the creativity of the marketeer to find this niche. Beachhead customers also provide good word of mouth referrals to adjacent segments. Beachhead is like the first pin in a bowling alley arrangement. If you strike the first pin vertically straight on, it will knock down all the pins in the next row. There will be a cascading effect and all the pins will come down. The Segway, after it fell into the chasm, identified its beachhead as visible public workers in uniform, like police, airport, and postal workers. Then the second segment they got into was that of tour companies that give people a sightseeing experience on segways in major tourist cities. That's how you go from one segment to another through customer references. The second step of the new marketing strategy is you have to build the whole product or ecosystem to meet the evolving needs of your customers. You might have started out just in segment 1 with application 1, but your customers after a while might need application 2 and application 3. So you have to build out the whole product. And you can do this by partnering with third party app developers because the company itself might have resource constraints in getting out of the chasm. After crossing the chasm and playing in the bowling alley, there is a burst of growth due to latent demand for your product. Remember, the product has now been established as having pragmatic benefits in the mainstream market. This is also called the tornado stage. Why? Although latent demand is assured, the company goes through a very difficult time in scaling up capacity to meet demand. If it fails in scaling up, customers will be unhappy, jump ship, and this could destroy the company. So the tornado is an operational challenge for the company. Raise enough capital for scaling up operations, hire enough people for sales and customer support, build out manufacturing and distribution capacity, and make sure your customers are satisfied. If your product successfully passes If your product successfully gets past the tornado stage, it can ride all the way to the top, which is called Main Street. Here, the marketeers can breathe a sigh of relief, but only briefly. The next challenge is what is going to be our next product to launch a new life cycle all over again. A company with just one product cannot sustain itself over the long term. It has to keep innovating, and if it cannot, then it can stumble, as we have seen with market leaders like Nokia or BlackBerry in recent years. That concludes our video lecture on understanding high technology customers. Thank you.